let's go Marty, Bruce, this gentleman here, and then this gentleman right here. Go ahead.
Jeff, you just noted that you feel like this is one of the two biggest races. Why? Why does it matter so much to win here? Is it getting into that elite fraternity of people that win at this place? Is it history?
It might be different for everybody, but for me, you know, remembering back as a kid watching A.J. Foyt and Johnny Rutherford and Rick Mears and my heroes racing at this track, always dreaming of racing at Indy, the history that this track has because of the Indianapolis 500. And then, you know, I remember what a big deal it was to have stock cars here. I was bummed out I wasn't here for the first test. You know, I really wanted to be there for that, but being here for the first race and seeing the crowd and you know, knowing that no other race had been run here other than the Indy 500, you know, to me, I still think have those memories of how big it is that we are here and how especially. I just finished with Chevy giving rides and just pulling out there on the track. I mean, I remember as a kid before I was racing NASCAR, coming over here and how difficult it was to get out on that track. They just don't let anybody out on it, and it's just sort of that prestige, you know, that comes around this place. And to me, I still have that. I still have those memories of that. I don't know if everybody does, but it, you know, I think probably more than anything, it's just the history of racing here at this track. And you look at who has won here, and you definitely are an elite group of drivers and names, and I think that definitely adds to the prestige and the importance of winning this race.
Let's go Bruce, gentleman here, gentleman here. Go ahead.
Jeff, kind of looking between now and Richmond, do you expect to see a lot of desperation from some of the guys that the only way they're going to get into the chase is to win a race or two? That there may be more fuel mileage gambles than we've ever seen before? Because back in the day, points would really come into play when somebody decided to do a fuel mileage.
Yeah. You know, when we get to this point in the season, I'm always interested in the thought process of the competitors and the media, because we do everything we can every weekend to try to win, you know, and now, and I hear where you're coming from, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, you know, it's risk versus reward, and right now, you know, if you're outside the chase or you don't think you have a shot at it, you know, and especially with the wins now, I think that definitely adds another element to it to take more risk. But if you're 10 laps short, you know, that's not risk, that's stupidity. Yeah. You know, and so that might be what you do. You go to that level of almost being stupid risky, and it could pay off if the cautions come enough. If you find a way, you know, some miraculous way to make up, you know, that fuel mileage, then go for it. That is not something that we would do, because right, and that's what I'm saying. So to me, it's risk versus reward, and the further back you get in the points, then yeah, the more risky that you can get. But just, you know, we're all pushing the limits to try to win every weekend. Everybody is, and those guys that have not won yet they're doing the same thing. So yeah, I mean, I guess if you have nothing to lose, then you could. But you know, I think I'll be curious to see how people handle it, and you know, I still think that there are plenty of teams out there that can win, you know, one or two races that are outside the top 10 in points, that can get themselves in that way
because of that,
without doing it that way.
Because of that, though, do you expect Richmond may end up being a last chance slugfest for some of these guys that are 14, 15, 16 with no wins?
You know, I'm not every driver out there. I only know how we would go about it, and you know, we would try to put the fastest race car we could out there, try to put ourselves in position to win, and then if it came down to taking a little bit more risk, then we would do it. You know, would I want to, you know, spin a guy out on the last lap, you know, to get the win? Depends on who I was racing and what kind of history I had with them, and what kind of position I had with them. You know, so I mean, I wouldn't do that to just anybody.
We'll go to this gentleman here, this gentleman here, and this gentleman here. Then we'll go to Nick. Go ahead.
Jeff, tight points race, a lot of winners this season. What do you contribute to the parity in the series this year?
That's a good question. It's interesting. I look at earlier in the season, and I felt like the Roush cars were just very strong, especially Carl. And I think that what you've and I felt like the Hendrick cars were off a bit. I feel like we've caught up. I think we've paid attention to what we're seeing in the garage area. We've really worked hard at making improvements aerodynamically, and I think that's gotten us closer to them. And I think maybe some other teams have done the same thing. I think the Childress teams started off pretty strong, and have been able to maintain. And then you look at Gibbs, I feel like they've kind of been up and down. So, when you don't have, I really thought that, this is a year that Carl is just going to dominate. But sometimes when you start the season off strong, it can work against you because it's hard to maintain that. And the teams, whatever you learned of the off season, they get to see it. This is the only form of motorsports that I know of that they lay your shocks out. After you win a race, a week or whatever, 2 weeks later, they lay your shocks out on the table and say, here to the competition. This is what they had. And when you're parked next to one another in the garage area, you see what teams are doing. You watch them go through inspection. You see the areas that NASCAR's focused on. In areas that they're talking to the team about. And so when a team's running good, you pay attention to those things and you go to work on them. And sometimes you find what they found. And so this year seems to be one of those years where, nobody seems to just be taken off with it. But I really think when the chase comes around, you're going to see somebody have a little bit more domination. It just seems like it happens every year. When it comes time, the best teams just bring out their best stuff and rise to the occasion.
Well,
Jeff, on that same topic of parity, historically, if you go back years of NASCAR, you had guys winning 15, 20 races who were winning the cup. Has those days gone forever? And you talked about you mentioned Carl, not right now. Will anybody really ever dominate?
Well, you never say never because we've seen what Jimmy Johnson has done. He's dominated, and that's with this new car. This new car, to me, really equaled the field out with how they, how the templates work and how they scrutinize the rules on this car. And it's really put us into a tighter box, which to me has made the competition much closer, which allows, because passing is such a tough thing to do, if somebody catches a caution at the right time and gets himself track position, they can win the race. So to me, it doesn't seem like with those factors that somebody would be able to dominate, but yet we still see it. And I think that's when you got to look at personnel. The driver, crew chief combination, personalities clicking and working together, and then the team rallies behind that, and it really comes down to the people that make the dominance more so than just the race car. And so I still think it's possible, but I'll be curious to see how the second half of this season goes.
right here, and we're going to end with John. Where'd John go? John's not here? Oh, yeah, right here it is.
Jeff, on Carl, just what are your thoughts about the ebbs and flows of his season?
The what?
On Carl, just the ebbs and flows of his season. How would you analyze his season to this point?
The ebbs and flows of Carl Edwards.
Well, like I said, early in the season I thought, wow, these guys are going to go on a tear and just, be unbelievable. And it just seemed like Carl's a great driver, so if you put him in a strong car, he has the ability to dominate. And there's a few guys in this sport, that are capable of doing that. And it just seems like whatever, dominance they had, the competition has caught up a little bit. And so they haven't shown it as much here recently. But this is a big event. You're going to see that come back into play here. It just seems like, when we get here to Indianapolis, the teams that are capable of taking it to that next level seem to always find a little bit more. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them, very strong this weekend. But for the rest of the season, when I look out at it, I still think they're a real major threat for the championship. But I don't know if they're going to do it in as dominant of a fashion as I thought they were earlier in the season.
Final question.
Again on Carl, Jeff, he's been in the news a lot lately because he hasn't decided where he's going next year.
And I tell you what, I think that's a big factor.
Right.
You know, I really do. I think that, you know, whether or not he's staying or going, it's a big distraction. It's a lot on his mind. And I think it's unfortunate, you know, in some ways, because I think this is the best year I've seen Carl have with a team and a car capable of winning the championship. And if those things are all playing out, I mean, let's say he's going somewhere else. They're done. I mean, I just don't see them winning the championship, you know, knowing that they're leaving. But I might be wrong, you know, or he's leaving. But, you know, if he stays, it might have just been a blip, and they can get back on track. So it's definitely, I think that's definitely playing a factor. And I'm not just saying that for Carl. It would with anybody that's going through a contract renegotiation year, and you know, things are up in the air. It's always going to be a distraction. And I feel like it's one thing with Jimmy Johnson, with myself, with certain drivers, that has been very comforting to know that, you know, you're in a secure position in the place where you want to be. You don't want to go anywhere else, and it allows that those discussions to take place without really distracting you, because they're pretty easy decisions, and it allows you to, you know, just stay focused on your team, your drive, what you're doing as a driver.
I don't know how closely you followed it, but are you surprised it's gone this long and he hasn't made a decision yet? It's getting pretty late.
I'm not surprised. I spoke to Carl years ago when he stayed with Roush. We talked to him as he talked to every team, and I saw his negotiating tactics at that time. It's not surprising to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, we need to let Jeff go. Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And good luck this weekend at the Brickyard. Also want to point out that Jeff Gordon's next win will be his 85th career NASCAR Sprint Cup Series victory. That'll put him third all time in the history of the sport. Okay, good luck on that.
With Bobby Allison.
No, Bobby's 84.
Not if you ask Bobby.
I know. Tony Stewart is next right here.